You clocked in like any other day. Grabbed a cup of coffee, walked to the lab, and entered just in time to see Ted press the red button. The coffee burned my tongue, but I barely noticed. My eyes were fixed on Ted's hand as it hovered over the control panel, trembling slightly in the harsh light of the containment chamber. His fingers stretched toward the emergency shutdown, the big red button we'd joked about 100 times during safety briefings. "Ted," I said, my voice barely carrying across the room. "What are you doing?" He didn't turn around. The back of his lab coat was wrinkled, and dark sweat stains spread across his shoulders. "Morning, Jack." "Right on time." The cup slipped from my fingers as he pressed the button. Coffee splashed across the sterile white floor, spreading like blood across tile. Nothing happened for 3 seconds. Then everything happened at once. The containment field indicators shifted from green to red. Alarms blared through the facility, their piercing wail drowning out my shout. The massive steel doors behind me slammed shut with a pneumatic hiss, and emergency lights began strobing across the walls. Ted finally turned to face me. His usually neat appearance was gone. His hair stuck up in greasy spikes, and 3 days of stubble darkened his jaw. But his eyes were worse. They blazed with a manic intensity I'd never seen before. "Do you know what we really have in there?" He gestured toward the reinforced observation window. Beyond it, the quantum stabilization chamber hummed with energy, its crystalline core pulsing with an unnatural blue light. "Ted, we need to reactivate the containment field." I moved toward the control panel, but he blocked my path. "They've been lying to us," he said. "All of them. Mendez, Crawford, the whole board. This isn't just quantum research anymore." The chamber's hum changed pitch, rising to a frequency that made my teeth ache. Warning messages flashed across the monitoring screens, cascade failures in multiple systems. "Listen to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Whatever you think is happening, we can talk about it after we secure the facility. If that field collapses completely, it's already too late." Ted smiled, and something in his expression made me take a step back. "The reaction started hours ago. I just accelerated it." The door buzzed as someone tried to override the emergency locks. Lily from chemical processing shouted through the intercom, but her words were lost in the cacophony of alarms. The chamber's crystalline core flared blindingly bright. I shielded my eyes, spots dancing in my vision. When I could see again, the air inside the chamber had taken on a strange, shimmering quality. "What did you do?" I demanded, grabbing Ted's coat. "What the hell did you do?" He didn't resist as I shook him. "I opened the door," he said softly. "They thought they could control it, contain it. But you can't contain infinity, Jack. You can only invite it in." The shimmering air began to leak through hairline cracks in the chamber's walls. Where it touched metal, the surface rippled like water. A monitor melted, components running like wax. I released Ted and ran to the auxiliary control station, fingers flying across the keyboard. Nothing responded. The system was locked out completely. "Ted, give me your access codes, now." He laughed, high and brittle. "There are no codes. I scrubbed everything. Clean slate." The door shuddered as security tried to break through. I could hear voices shouting, the impact of heavy tools against metal. "They're coming," Ted said. He pulled something from his pocket, a small device with blinking lights. "But they're too late. We all are." The quantum core's hum reached a fever pitch. Cracks spiderwebbed across the observation window. The shimmering air had filled half the chamber now, and everything it touched began to change. Reality itself seemed to bend and fold where the effect spread. I lunged for Ted's device, but he danced away. "Don't you want to see what's on the other side?" he asked. "What they've been hiding from us." The window shattered. As the shimmer poured into the lab, I dove behind a workstation. The air felt wrong against my skin, like static electricity mixed with sandpaper. "Ted!" I shouted. "Get down!" But he stood there, arms spread wide, as reality warped around him. His lab coat began to ripple, then his skin. The look of rapture on his face turned to horror as he realized what was happening. "Wait," he said. This isn't right." The calculations, his words dissolved into a scream as his body twisted in ways that shouldn't be possible. I pressed myself against the floor, trying to stay below the spreading wave of distortion. The security team finally breached the door, but they were too late. Ted was gone, or rather, he was everywhere. His matter spread across dimensions we were never meant to see. The containment teams arrived in sealed suits, deploying emergency fields that slowly pushed back the quantum breach. But they couldn't undo what had already happened. They couldn't bring Ted back from wherever he'd gone. Hours later, I sat in a debriefing room, wrapped in a shock blanket as investigators asked their questions. They wanted to know what Ted had said, what he'd done, whether I'd noticed any warning signs. I told them everything, but I left out one detail. I didn't mention the moment before Ted pressed that button, when his eyes met mine in the reflection of the observation window. For just a second, I'd seen something there, not madness, but certainty. The look of a man who'd glimpsed something so vast and terrible that it had burned away everything he used to be. The coffee stain is still there on the lab floor, they tell me. They can't remove it. Sometimes it seems to move when no one's looking, forming patterns that hurt the eyes. I've requested a transfer to another facility, but I know it doesn't matter. Whatever Ted let in, it's watching us now, waiting. And somewhere, in spaces between spaces, a door stands open.